Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews. And we got a little series on our channel where one of us gets the other one into a band they're not really too familiar with. More recently, we did cover Judas Priest on the channel, Vile getting me into that. Now it's my turn to get Vile into a band. So today, we're gonna have Vile Self's first impressions of L'Enfant Sauvage by Gojira. So, I don't think Vile's listened to this band very much. Gojira is one of my all-time favorite bands. We've only covered them once on the channel, and that was a new song they released this year called Another World. We reacted to the video. And this album just blows me away.
What'd you say it was called? L'Enfant Sauvage, like Savage Kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's French. They're a French band.
Yep.
And we've actually seen them live before. When they were touring with Slipknot last year. I thought they were just phenomenal. They tore the house down with that.
They were good.
And yeah, this is an album that, you know, I remember when I first kind of got into this band, I checked out that album because it was newer at the time. I dug it, but I kind of just, you know, didn't really pay too much attention. And then more recently, in the past few years, then Magma came out. I was really digging that. And then I came back to this album, and it just completely floored me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, okay, I'll tell you this right now. I'm excited about this. Magma is the only album that I have listened to. I've heard that album a few times. I think it's pretty good. I didn't love it, but I also never really gave it a fully focused listen ever. But I'll tell you the reason I'm excited for this. The reason I'm excited for this is because the hype Gojira gets on this channel from people writing about it. Gojira is a monster of a band as far as the love people have for it. As long as in regards to you guys, like the people that follow us on this channel, you guys love Gojira. And there's a few other bands you love a lot too, but Gojira is like one of the top ones.
So I'm happy to see that.
Because of that, I'm excited to check this out. So that might be a little scary because my bar is probably a little higher because of that, right? But that's okay. I'm looking forward to listening to this album.
I mean, I picked this album for a reason, for a few reasons, one of which is I think you'll enjoy it. And we're gonna find out right now to listen to the album for the first time for Vile Self and the manyth time for me. And we'll be right back, so stay put. Alright, so Vile has now listened to L'Enfant Sauvage for the very first time in its entirety. What are your thoughts?
Good album, for sure. Definitely hits the right marks. It was a lot to take in. It's definitely an album that I gotta, you know, really take some time to absorb.
Very packed full of stuff.
Packed full of stuff. There was some common trends on the album that I was noticing. So I guess I'll go into some of that stuff that I noticed. So the drummer, who I think you said his name is Mario, he has very good style. He's definitely knows his way around the kit. He knows when to do the little fancy things. He knows when to throw the bells in there, when to throw the little things in there, when to turn on the 16th note double bass, when to throw in the blast beats. He really just has a really good arsenal of stuff. But one thing I noticed that he does throughout this album a lot, and I don't know why I'm noticing it more with this band than I do with others. He really likes those low floor toms, and he really likes accenting them and really making the sound, the songs and the music sound really low and deep. The guitars are tuned at a drop C. Pretty damn sure most of the album's a drop C, which is really cool. So it's low tuned. The bass is low. The singing is kind of in a higher register, and then the guitars and most of the songs have riffs that also play low on the neck. Sorry, high on the neck. So you got these high note guitar riffs playing in tandem with really low sounding music. It basically creates this yin yang type of vibe where you're getting a lot of highs and a lot of lows at the same time, which I think is really cool. And I think they obviously do it on purpose. It creates a cool dynamic, really gives them a flavorful sound, and those floor tom accents really just add oomph to that dynamic that they do. So
What were your highlight tracks?
Highlight tracks.
What was the best?
Okay, so I got a few tracks that are kind of tied. Let me just go over those. So just starting from the top, the second song, L'Enfant Sauvage, which is the title track, obviously. The song right after that, The Axe, was a highlight for me. Mouth of Kala, or Kayla, however you pronounce that, was a highlight for me. And The Gift of Guilt was a highlight for me. So those 4 songs were definitely like pinnacle for the album. For a lot of the same reasons and some different reasons too. They have stuff in them that makes them unique, like The Gift of Guilt, for example, has the tapping riff at the intro, which then repeats later on in the mid song, and I think it also fades out with the tapping. Fading out is also another thing that this band really likes to ride out their grooves, which is pretty cool. I like when that happens. They did it a few times, so it's not like overdone, but the grooves are really nice. This band, when they groove, they know how to really get it going, right? There's a lot of parts that I would call like slow headbanging music, like in L'Enfant Sauvage. Near the end, there's a bass slide that goes into some tremolo picking with some double bass behind it, and I'm just like, this is slow headbanging music. It's like dun 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 kind of pace. I like that. It doesn't always have to be like super like, you know, thrashy kind of metal. The pacing is really good. It's got there's slow tempos, there's fast tempos, there's stuff in between. There's a lot of things they do also on the guitar. Like I said, they play higher on the neck, a lot of like kind of riffs, kind of offsetting that low-tuned sound that they have.
There was one in the beginning of Pain is a Master that kind of sounded like a slide whistle, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, and I pointed that out too. I was like, this sounds like I couldn't think of the name, so you said slide whistle. I was like, it sounds like one of those whistles, and it definitely does, which is kind of weird. As far as slides though, there's guitar slides, there's bass slides on this album, there's pinch harmonics, which I love pinch harmonics. What was the song with that triple pinch harmonic? There was this cool thing he did.
Which one was that?
It was The Gift of Guilt. The Gift of Guilt. So yeah, does some nice slides, couple pinch harmonics, and then there's a couple parts where he does it's like a triple pinch, like 3 pitches, one after the other. Really cool. And then for 1 bar, the drummer throws in the 16th notes on the kick. Just out of nowhere, here you go. Here's a little gift for you for a bar. Love that.
Perhaps it was the gift of guilt.
It was the gift of guilt. Well, I like that guilt. So yeah. Yeah, so those are highlights for me. Some low-hanging tracks for me was The Wild Healer, which was an interlude track. I always give interlude tracks relatively mediocre scores because I really don't know how I feel about them. I think if I listen to that a couple more times, it'll kind of fit in a little better. But I didn't know it was an interlude track, so it had this riff that kind of just rode for 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or so, and then it just kind of ended. I was like, oh, I thought that was gonna break into something a little more. So it was a little bit weird for me. Pain is a Master was a bit of a flop for me, and The Fall, which is the last song, was also a bit of a flop, but that's towards the end of the album. So fatigue might have been setting in, not quite sure. Again, once I hear those songs again, I'll definitely have a better idea of how I really feel about them. Other than that, I feel like the album really did a good job at catching my attention, and yeah, I definitely liked what I listened to, for sure.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I think throughout the week, I guess like this is kind of one of those albums that has so much in it that like as you listen throughout the week, you might notice like a million different things in all the songs that you probably didn't. One thing to mention about Wild Healer, and I mentioned this as we were listening, is that the riff in that kind of sounds like the starting riff to The Gift of Guilt.
The tapping, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like if you listen to those back to back, it might be kind of a nice interlude there, even though the album flows really well between itself. So you kind of had that already. It goes into planned obsolescence pretty well, which I mean, you know, as you're like you were saying, like, oh, I wonder if this is gonna like break out into something. It kind of does with the next track.
Yeah, and one thing I definitely want to try to focus on a little more throughout the week is the vocals, because I'm noticing that I have pretty much 0 notes on the vocals. It's all drumming and guitar related and some bass stuff, which is actually kind of odd. I've always got something to say about the vocals. Well, that's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean the vocals were so bad. If they were bad, I would have notes about them being bad. The vocals just kind of came and went, which now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of weird. It's kind of unique that I didn't really paid much attention to them.
That's really interesting.
So that means they kind of just went by without much that stood out, but also nothing that annoyed me.
It kind of meshed in with everything else.
Blended right into everything, and
But not in a bad way.
definitely not in a bad way. I gotta put some attention and emphasis on the vocals when I listen to, for sure. At least the first few times I run the album, to see exactly where he's going with his range. Because I know it's kind of like, I did say it was kind of medium, middle of the pack as far as his
Like mid-high.
mid-high as far as his range. And I think that accents the music. But that's as far as my comments went as far as vocals.
In regards to, like, I guess changing things up, there was, like, in the fall, you hear actually a lot more deeper growls in it, which is pretty cool. A little bit more dynamic. And then there's also the little Alice in Chains kind of sounding bit, where he kind of, it's hard to describe Joe's vocals in that part, but it's a little bit more melodic, I guess.
Yeah, I believe Born in Winter was also a song that had almost like talking kind of vocals on it, not really melodic singing.
It contributes to the dynamic of that song, though, where you have like a really like kind of small aspect with whatever, a simple groove, and then this explosion in front of your face, and then back to that small thing at the end.
Yeah. Another cool thing that I noticed was a range of sounds in terms of certain songs, or maybe certain parts of songs, being a lot more melodic versus other parts that were more maybe genty in a way. Maybe I'm not quite getting the right term there, because it's hard to remember. I only heard it once, right? So there's definitely stuff that's more melodic, because I did make a note of that, but it's in comparison to something that's just not quite as melodic. It's more in your face, abrupt kind of riffing and playing
Maybe
style.
a bit more shreddy, perhaps?
Could be more shreddy, I'm not sure. I'd have to hear it again to really figure out where my head's thinking right now. But there's a dynamic there, and I definitely noticed there's a dynamic. I just can't really put my finger on exactly what was going on. But yeah, I think a good first impression. Looking forward to listening for the week, and I think I'm in for a treat.
Yep, Vile's gonna do exactly that, and you know what? I'm gonna listen to the album throughout the week too, because I just love this album. And we're gonna come back next week to review L'Enfant Sauvage. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like the video if you like it. Comment, tell us in the comments below how much you like this album. We know a lot of you guys really love this band, as do I. And that's all we got for you today. Subscribe if you guys are new, and remember to check back every single day on our channel to vote for the best metal band in the world tournament. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm Vile Self.
And we'll see you guys later.